Hey, how's it going? It's Lawrence from the Performance Ranch, and today we're going to review a pulling motion, so also known as a row. We got lots of different types of rows. We got standing rows with the band, we got bent over rows with the dumbbell, we got rows with the TRX. So we're going to kind of review it all and kind of show the techniques and the cues that we give to our clients that we really try to emphasize to maximize what the movement is. So we're going to start off with a bent over row. We're going to pull out a bench for that and a kettlebell. All right, so we're gonna start off with the bent over row. We're gonna use the bench for this and a kettlebell. Coach Brendan here is gonna be our model for it, but I'm gonna demonstrate the exercise first. So the first thing we're always looking at is where your body is in space, right? We're looking at what the ribs are doing, what your shoulders are doing, what your neck is doing. So when I get Brendan into this position, I'm gonna have him bend over. I'm gonna put most of his weight in his feet, but he also has some weight in his hand. Make sure his abs stay engaged. We're gonna get the kettlebell out. I'm gonna have him grab the kettlebell, and the first move he's gonna do is gonna pull his shoulder back. Without lifting his shoulder up, which is a common problem we see, pull his shoulder back, and then we're gonna row through. And again, we're trying to keep that body nice and stiff, so he's only moving from the shoulder. All right, so let's have you do that. We're gonna make sure everything kind of looks well. So the first thing is we're gonna get that back nice and flat. We're gonna have him actually turn his hips back a little bit. There we go. So now he has a nice flat back here. He's engaged through the core. So this should also feel like a quadruped movement. So with our bird dogs and other movements that we do, this all should feel the same. All right, Brendan, so without moving your shoulder or anything yet, I'm gonna pull the shoulder back and pull, there we go. That's what I meant was without bending your elbow. Ready, go ahead and go again. So you see the first movement is no bend in the elbow. It's gonna be shoulder retracted, and then he's gonna pull through. Then he bends the elbow. So just get about 5 reps there. We got to make sure to balance it out right. We're gonna get 5 on this side. Let's go and go 5 on the other side real quick. And typically you may see some differences when people do this. A lot of times when you see this movement, you may see a lot of hip movement. Sometimes you watch, go and show us what we typically see here when somebody starts. Yeah, there we go. A lot of rotation, which is fine after you learn how to establish this control. But in order to establish control first, we want to make sure you're nice and stiff. You can control that core. The row with rotation will be something that we eventually get into, but for the start of everything, we're gonna go with this movement first. So now we like that movement and we like the way it looks. We're gonna add to it. And again, not by adding weight, but by adding a stability point to it. So the way we're gonna add stability, we like to do what's called a bird dog row. So we get, again, this is a pretty advanced position. So I would start off somebody on the bench, nice and flat. So now they're working on this quadruped position. They kind of learn what it feels like, and they're gonna row here first on 3 points of engagement. But then when they feel confident and they feel strong, then we're gonna add this extension through the leg. We're gonna make sure the back stays flat. Again, same movement, it's shoulder and then row. So you see that I get my scapula to retract, then pull through. Again, stay nice and solid. So we're getting a lot of core engagement with this movement as well as still working that lat. So let's start off with all 4s first. Back's nice and flat. So go and stick at your butt more a little bit. There you go, like that. Trying to look at this, being neutral. Just hip up a little bit. Like this, there we go. I'm going to row and pull through. Good. All right, we'll do about 2 more of those and we're gonna add this extension to it. Good. Last one. Good. Go ahead and extend this left leg out now. So now we're gonna lock out his left leg. We're gonna make him force his left heel into my hand. Good. Now go in a row and engage. There we go. It's a little more challenging, same exact weight, but now there's a lot of stability control here. There we go. Again, we can't cheat both sides, so go ahead and try the other side. Just get about 5 reps in real quick. Good. Shoulder back and squeeze. Good, let's try to extend that right leg now. Again, you always want to make note of the differences as well. When you see this, trying to always establish control at the hips. A way you can monitor it, sometimes I'll put a cup of water right there. Not really, but that's kind of what the whole purpose is, right? Looking at making sure the hips don't move. So that was great. So again, that's a very basic row pattern that we do a lot of, and we see a lot of people doing this. Again, sometimes we see some crazy stuff where people standing up too high and looking like a chainsaw in a way. We're not looking for that movement. Not right now, we're looking for control, all right? So the next one we're gonna go into is a standing row with the cable or a little elastic band. We'll kind of go into that movement now. All right, so the next thing we're gonna go into is a band row. Again, we're just using a little elastic band here. And sometimes we start our clients just with this alone because it really teaches them to how to stand and be engaged in the core. But again, to go back to the very start, this is what we like to do from the very start, is teach people how to row from a half kneeling position. So we'll go down to a knee. We'll make sure their hips are nice and stacked over their bottom leg. We make sure the hips are also level. And I'm gonna have Brendan start from here. The first thing he's gonna do is pull both shoulders back without bending his elbows. So it's just a little shoulder retraction from the scapula. Once he can master that, then we add the full row in. So it's pull, engage. All right, let's have you try that. So down on one knee, we're gonna look at Brendan, make sure his hips are level and stacked. There we go, his abs are engaged, and we're always looking at what's happening at the rib cage here. That needs to stay engaged, so without elevating your shoulders, go ahead and pull your shoulder blades back. Good, and go ahead and let them slide all the way forward. Go ahead and protract, good. Now retract, good, protract, retract, perfect. Now let's go ahead and add the full row to it. There we go. And you notice when Brendan goes back, he's gonna stop, when come back, he's gonna stop about 6 inches in front of his body. The typical pattern we see a lot of people do is they'll pull too deep. It'll show us on this side, and you'll notice the shoulder will round forward a lot. So we don't want that. We wanna make sure his shoulders stay pinned back here. Doesn't mean you gotta go through the full range all the way back to the ribs. There we go. Go ahead and switch knees real quick so you can look at stability points from both sides. Tuck that pelvis under you and get, there we go. Try it again. Good. So we're always looking at two things here. Make sure the hips are aligned. Make sure his back is nice and controlled here. Make sure his ribs stay down. There we go, good. So that movement, we'll do the same thing, Brendan, but we're gonna do it standing up now. So the same exact movement. I'm a fan of actually going into a split stance first. And the main reason is it's gonna help establish this control from the core. So do the same exact thing. Again, the light tension, of course, with an elastic band, you can step back to make it harder, you can step forward to make it a little easier. So whatever you feel comfortable with, good, because that resistance will change with the length of pull. Good, that's good, just like that. Always stay in control. Again, I'm looking at different points, making sure his hips are aligned. Also, you're gonna probably feel this in his front leg because it's slowing him down. So this is another exercise that we use a lot of for people that are active and that like to walk downhill, for instance. That lead leg is that control leg. That's that eccentric load, meaning that's what's gonna slow you down. So we'll use this as a rehab exercise as well for people with any knee issues or just teaching them how to control their body and space, especially going downhill, because gravity's acting upon them. Here the band is acting upon them to pull them forward. So going from there, now, without changing anything, maybe adding a little more resistance by making it a single band, we'll do the same exact thing, but we're gonna do it on one arm now. So one arm, leg in front, core engaged, nice and tall. It's the same movement. It's elbow doesn't bend, you pull, then you row. Notice I stop in front of my body because the typical thing is somebody pulls too deep, then they end up here, elevating into their ear. We don't want that. We want to engage through the lat. Nice and strong. You'll also feel this because now we're on one side, your body's gonna wanna rotate. We're gonna resist that rotation with our core. So this is also a core exercise, an anti-rotation exercise. All right, Brendan, let's have you go for that. Let's just do about 5 reps each side. Good, nice and strong. And you know, Brendan's gonna kind of hold his body, kind of make sure he stays in control. You can also put the hands on the ribs, make sure you're not feeling the ribs flare out, which his are not. Good. There we go. And you feel that through the lat here? Perfect. Probably in the lead leg as well, a little bit in the core. Good, you got it all. And that's kind of what, you know, we talk about body positions or body part exercises, but in reality, this is total body. Every exercise that we've been showing you is a total body exercise because he's having to control his whole body to do this pattern here. So, you know, again, we started on the knee, we moved up to his feet. So there's a lot of ways you can kind of do this movement to make it more challenging for yourself without necessarily adding more weight. a lot of times that's people's first thing to go to is like, oh, let's just add more load. But reality, you can change a lot of things. This can also become, you know, he's having split stance out here, kind of wide. He can narrow that stance down into one plane and really make it challenging with balance and control and all this other stuff. So if you're an athlete who skis, who mountain bikes, who does anything that requires a lot of balance, that's something that would be very beneficial for you, is not just add weight, but actually narrow your base of support. For rowing patterns, that's our pulling pattern. That's pretty much our main go-to exercises. We really emphasize, the main thing is control the core, making sure those ribs stay down. The typical thing we see is those ribs will flare out and then they'll get into their lower back. So we're really being conscious of this, right? Engaging through that ab, making sure the hips are level to the ground. If you can work on that alone, you're gonna have a great pulling position, and that's something you can keep emphasizing and working on consistently every time you do this type of movement.